Hi, pool guy. I have a vinyl liner pool and my yard has a high water table slash other issues because my liner floats every year and the liner develops wrinkles. If I have my liner replaced, what are some of the things that should be done to control the water in the yard so we can prevent this issue from happening in the future?
All right, in every single solitary case that I've seen a liner floating issue, it's in a clay environment. Now, most soils, non-clayish soils, allow the water to percolate down through, and as it rains, the water is able to weep out and literally disappear down into the aquifer. With clay, you get a really interesting environment where the clay basically becomes a dam and doesn't allow the water to drain away. And in this particular case, typically when you have a floating liner, a couple of things have happened. Number one, guaranteed that it's a clay environment, but beyond that, the pool is set too low in the yard, so things are running toward it, is one of the big issues that I've seen over all of the years. And when you build a vinyl liner pool and you excavate for it, you excavate 3 feet larger in all directions around the pool, which gives us this perfect place for water to collect. And if water builds up behind that, even if there's soil or sand or stone put in there, if the water builds up behind there, it oftentimes pushes the liner in. So remedies for that are, how can you create better drainage in the yard, first and foremost? And by replacing a liner does not guarantee that that problem is solved. I've seen in the past people put sump pumps to be able to try to pump that water out, French drains around the pool to pump the water out, but usually it has something to do with the pool being too low. But secondary, a second possibility would be that the downspouts that collect all the water off of the house end up dumping into the pool area. It could be a simple fix as diverting that water away so that it's shedding away from the pool itself. But if your liner's floating now and you go to replace the liner, likely your liner's going to float again, unless you spend the time and energy and effort to figure and pay attention to where the water's coming from. And I'll use an example from many years ago. I was hired to build the swimming pool, but I was not hired to do the retaining walls around the swimming yard, around the pool. And there were several retaining walls. We had to cut into the earth. You look out the back of the house and the grade went up. We had to cut into the earth to be able to put the pool in. They hired someone else to do the retaining walls, and their responsibility was also drainage. Well, put the pool in, a year later, liner floated. This was clay. And they wanted to blame me. And I said, well, let's investigate as to why this is my problem and why that I might have done it, why it might be my fault. And when I got there, I looked around and I decided to do an experiment and show them. And what I did was I took the garden hose and I threw it up on top of the retaining wall. And within a matter of minutes, because I had dug at the bottom of the retaining wall, between the concrete and the retaining wall was a landscaping bed, and I dug out there, and almost immediately the water started pooling. You could see the water literally starting to collect right there. And I asked them the question. I said, if it can get immediately from there to there, where do you think it's going? It's running right under the patio and into that void behind the wall of the pool that had fresh fill when the pool was built. And so, like I explained to them, clearly your people who built the retaining wall didn't plan for the drainage that they were supposed to. So the solution in that case was to put a French drain between the pool and that retaining wall, and it solved the problem. Because all of the water running from the neighbor's yard, from their yard, was literally dumping itself right there in the pool environment, causing the liner to float. So that's kind of the typical scenario. Now, there's 1,000 different variables that could happen, but If you're allowing water to build up behind the walls of the pool, you're absolutely guaranteeing yourself a floating liner. You have to figure out where the water's coming from and wick it away. It's the only way to do it.